Hello and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program, Kerbal Fuel Crisis, where if you have missed any of the series, we are not allowed to use the rocket fuel that comes with any of the ships. Kerbin has run out of fuel. We are currently operating from a mining base up in the northern part of the continent here. And we, last episode, were able to set up a fairly quick and dirty mining base. We just dropped a bomb with all the necessary equipment we needed, which I thought was pretty fun. Little flying missile delivery system. I'm going to be working on some more interesting designs in future, because while the base bomb was kind of interesting, I felt it could have been done better. Have an actual craft or something. I was just having problems getting it to work with a real craft and not just a disposable sort of set of wings, largely because of the render distance problem, where it would have been very difficult to control both at the same time without one despawning. But I might just make a unmanned version and deal with that as it comes up. Actually, let me know, anybody who watches these, I know I've got a few people, let me know what your thoughts are on despawning airplanes. Is it better if I have to do something with a drop-off to make an aircraft that will not land and probably despawn, or make something that's completely disposable and is basically just a set of wings shoved on the side of the thing? Now, this here is our unmanned flying mega tanker, basically. I've given up on blimps for tanking. I've given up on blimp tankers because they're too heavy, they're too slow, and once full, they can't get off the ground. So we're concentrating on flying tankers. Excuse me. This uses mostly B9 parts and some fire spitter. I think the landing gear are the only stock things on this plane, or the landing gear and the intakes. So, yeah, that's most of what's the stock on this plane, come to think of it. But I wanted it unmanned, partly to save on, well, not really save on weight, because I think this module weighs a little more because of the electronics, but mostly to keep the people safe. This is an experimental craft. Wasn't sure if it was going to work. I've already overshot the runway twice, my little impromptu runway. Anyway, already overshot it twice. Was using these Sabre engines, because Sabre engines are the most powerful in the B9, which has more powerful engines than vanilla game. I'm looking into finding some more engine and thing mods, because I don't know. I like the B9 stuff, but I feel like it's a little more limiting than I want. I'd like some better planes and things, really. So after we land, we go through the refueling, which means that our brave little Kerbal has to get out and attach some end pipes and things. We did bring a huge box of ground pylons and endpoints, and we're probably going to bring more later. Mostly because there's nothing else to do. No, because while I do put links on my ships, I'm very bad at predicting what they'll be able to reach. For example, here, where our poor Kerbal is unable to reach the thing, even with jumping. So we're going to have to head back, grab an endpoint, put it onto the vehicle itself. We'll just collect it later. We've been putting on and collecting the endpoints to keep a constant supply. We don't want our endpoints to be disappearing back to the KSC. But with the endpoint and everything connected up, and the kethane generator kethaning, or I don't know what the verb for that would be, kethaninating, I don't know, converting. And we go back inside because, well, the space virus was ostensibly dealt with in the last episode. We still are not completely sure what caused it, so trying not to let our Kerbals stay outside. Now, unfortunately, the second we start fueling, using time acceleration because the fueling takes forever, our plane sinks into the ground. I've experienced this before. I've since done some things to try to correct it. If anybody has any other suggestions, I'm happy to hear it. But for now, our plane's landing gear has become non-physical and incorporeal, unable to support the weight of the plane. And trying to get it out has unfortunately broken things. So now, while our plane is out of the ground, it has less than a third of the air intakes that it used to, which is a problem. And I tried fiddling with this, tried redoing some things, tried to get the linkages to reappear. Nothing, unfortunately. So our plane is now almost crippled. I'm very glad that I put that one extra intake on. I was kind of going for an aesthetic thing, and it turns out it's going to be the only way we can get this plane back home, which is unfortunate in the extreme, really. But we'll be able to collect the pieces, if nothing else. So this is really just the cleanup crew, if you think about it. He's got to go out, collect the bits that fell off the ship, and put them away. I wish he could grab more. I know there are quite a few things that you can grab with the attachment system, but you can't apparently grab fuel intakes, or not fuel intakes, air intakes, which I don't know. They seem about the same size as some of the magnets and things. So I'm really not sure why exactly you can't do that. But back inside, not taking the space virus thing any more softly. Words? I don't know. Any less seriously, I think is the term I was looking for there. We're not taking the space virus any less seriously. There we go. So, we're going to try to get our crippled plane home, and I'm noticing a problem that, I don't know, I want to try to get around, but it looks like if I spin around, I'm going to crash my wing into the mining base, which I've done before in a previous iteration of the mining base. I've smashed into little bits of it. It was not fun. It takes a long time to get components out here, especially if you want to repair things. So smashing it to pieces with one wing of their fueling truck is not going to be an ideal situation. So those explosions kind of helped me realize that I really want to send out another truck, kind of the equivalent of probably the equivalent of those trucks that they use to back up jumbo jets. You know, because a modern airplane does not have a reverse gear. A lot of aircraft do not have gears, have motors on their wheels. Some do, very few. I can't think of any offhand, but most aircraft cannot reverse. You know, they go forward. They use their engines to propel them even on the ground. They use much lower speeds than they do in the air, of course, but using the engines to propel them on the ground means that they can only move forward and turn. So when an airplane has to back up, especially something like a jumbo jet or commercial aircraft, you need to attach something to the front. They attach a little cart to the front wheel that can push the plane backward. It's actually pretty impressive that it can push the immense size of a plane with a teeny little car thing. It's less than the size of like a sedan. But anyway, we are creating a version of our base truck. I didn't want to just reload the base truck. It had its problems. So instead we have base truck Mark II, which has a front-mounted winch and a rear-mounted hook winch, and it should provide us with all of our base trucking needs. So the problem that now presents itself is that we need to get this truck to the base somehow. And as I said before, I don't really want to use disposable aircraft too much more. Fuel tank having a weird time connecting. I think it's the fire spitter parts trying to connect to the standard KSP parts. I don't know. But anyway, I don't want to use disposable aircraft, and I spent a long time trying to design a thing that I could use to get this truck out to the base without having to just, you know, strap a set of wings to it and have it fly off. And the problem is it's so big I can't really fit it inside of another plane that has a storage compartment or a retractable roof. I am blanking on so many words today. The opening roof bit of the, you know what I mean. A cargo. I can't really put it inside of a cargo plane because it is too big. That's the basic point I'm trying to make here. So instead I have to kind of construct this weird carrier plane thing with really long legs that can lift the truck and has landing gear long enough to get around it, which is a very, very weird challenge because it means that my center of gravity is way the heck down there, which means the plane is going to constantly be pulling forward. But if I move the center of gravity too far back, it's not going to be able to take off again after it's landed. And I really do want to have it take off again. I'm using a probe core to get this plane going because I don't really want to have, mostly because I didn't want to deal with the ladders actually. I did consider having a manned cargo plane and then with truck personnel in the cargo plane and then transferring them to the truck, but I just didn't want to bother with building ladders that long to get the Kerbals down. The ladder system is a little bit of a pain, difficult to do, just like attaching those two struts you see me struggling with here. I think I do eventually get them connected. There we go. But the ladder system is such a pain, and it's so finicky that I don't think I'd be able to get Kerbals out of the plane if I put them in the plane. So here we go. Now, my solution partially for the lower center of mass was to split the difference between the center of lift and the center of mass with the center of thrust, which will hopefully keep the whole thing a little more stable when the truck's on. I'm not sure about how stable it'll make it once we have the truck separated and need to fly this thing home. But since it's automated, if it does crash on the way back, it's not a huge loss. It would be nice to be able to reuse this design, like get it back to base and be able to reload it, which I know is impossible with. I know it's impossible with the way the decoupler is there, but we might design a better version that we can actually attach things to. I would like to use the Kerbal attachment system winch for that, but I've never gotten the winch to successfully redock something once it curls it up. The winches stay fairly unstable once they are in place. And here you see me fiddling around with these ailerons. Ailerons? I have trouble saying that. Flaps. Flappy bits. The flappy bits of the plane. I believe they're ailerons? I don't know. Anyway, now you can see why I skip a little bit of my building, because there's been so much of it fiddling around with things like that. But I have had some people ask, so I try to put builds in. Sometimes I have to fiddle around way too much to be on screen, and I don't know how to cut in the useful bits. And sometimes I have to go through so much R&D that the thing I build is completely dissimilar to what I finally wind up with. And sometimes it's just better as a surprise. So, flying this thing off, surprisingly well working, I thought. It does take forever to get off the runway, takes forever to get up to speed, but considering that it's a probe plane carrying a large base truck underneath it, worked pretty well. Oh, and as you may have noticed, we have Bill and Jeb, who I've decided, after Jebediah's little scare in the last bit of the series, I decided that he should really be relegated to base duties. So while I don't want to leave him out completely, he's too talented to waste on some of these fueling flights, and he's too precious to the community to let have the potential of getting lost on one of our more ambitious missions, shall we say, or more my ineptitude, we could also say. So anyway, Bill and Jeb. Bob comes in later. Bill and Jeb are going to be driving the trucks and things. Oh yes, and I did put in the fuel balancer. I forgot to mention that earlier. Fuel balancer has been a great help to me in my times of trouble. But Bill and Jeb are going to be flying the truck. Driving the truck. They're currently flying the truck, but they will be driving the base truck. The main three, Bill, Bob, and Jeb, are going to be relegated to base duties for this particular mission. They've paid their dues, they've done their time, they deserve a break, which means they get put on desk duty, basically. We know that's never what anyone wants, but after this long in the Space Fleet Force, Astronaut Center, whatever it's going to be called, after this long they deserve a quasi-retirement. So they're going to be doing base staff duties, mostly truck driving, some light refueling, some heavy lifting, etc. And this way we won't have to mount another 16-hour mission to rescue Jeb from a non-functioning kethane refinery. That was, I believe, episode 3, so if you're interested, check that out. So, truck finally off the plane. I did miscalculate that the truck's little hook thing cannot get past the bottom of the plane there, but thankfully these struts on the back seem to be more of a suggestion than a physical object, so we are able to pass through them. See, this is, I was thinking about this earlier. I might install quantum struts, because quantum struts are not cheating, because apparently all struts are quantum, if you look at it that way. But I might install quantum struts. I'm looking at other mods to install for this. Next series I'm introducing a couple. I think I might introduce one every few episodes, keep things interesting, keep things fresh. I really do want to put in some interstellar parts, but I definitely don't want to cheat, because I know those give you ways to completely circumvent fuel, and that's kind of the point of the series. So I might introduce some of those later on, after we've gotten some fuel things set up, but for now we're going to be sticking to the mods we've got. I've been watching a lot of the World War K, which made me want to put weapons into the series, but then we'd basically just be becoming a World War K ripoff, so as fun as that would be, I'd like to be a little more original. Now the lights, this weird blue color on the lights turned out really, really well, and I did enjoy it. Because look at how it interacts with the green on there. I asked my girlfriend what color to make the lights, she said blue, and I made them sort of blue-green, which makes the kethane fluoresce, which I thought was really interesting. So, as we remember, or I kind of forgot actually while I was recording just now, the truck is actually here to pull this plane back so that it has a chance of lifting off without hitting anything. So, electromagnet onto the plane. We then test that the electromagnet is working, which it is. We watch the electromagnet glitch out for a minute, which it also does. Very well, I might add. Very, very nice glitchiness to the electromagnet. And now we simply drive off. Or so I thought. I thought that this thing docked for some reason. I don't know if they changed it or if it just doesn't anymore, but I had to go turn the brakes off on the other plane. I could have sworn that the magnet used to be some sort of docking thing. May have been altered in the newest version, or maybe I'm just remembering wrong. All things being possible. So we're going to be taking this truck and really trying to move the plane. Now, unfortunately, these wheels don't have very much torque. Why do I keep switching around here? I don't know. These wheels don't have a ton of torque on them for some reason, and that's a bit of a problem. I wish that there were, I don't know, better wheels, really, just in general. Because I realize that this truck is much lighter than the plane, but we have so much trouble even getting it to move at all. Thankfully, we finally do. There's this weird sticking point to the wheels, I've noticed, where it seems like the wheels don't want to move at all, and then they hit some sort of critical point of acceleration or something. I don't know exactly what. And then they all of a sudden start moving fine. You notice it a lot if you turn on the brakes before your engines, if you're launching an airplane. It happens all the time. You sit there and idle for quite a while, and then all of a sudden your wheels seem to let loose and you go. And it's certainly not static friction, because that would be much less than what it is. Unless static friction is a huge amount in the Kerbal world, which it could be, because a lot of other things are or aren't. I mean, there's no air friction, so why would there be static friction? But maybe static friction is different because there's no air friction. I don't know. I never took physics. Well, I did take physics. I took one class of physics in college, and I don't know what it is, but I had some real trouble connecting the theory to the math. I understood all of the physics principles that they told me, and I was a math major for a few years anyway. I took way more math classes than I would care to admit, and I understood all of the math, because math in low-level physics at least is very, very, very simple. It's basically algebra. But I had very much trouble connecting the math that I was doing to the physics principles that they were being applied to. I didn't know what the numbers actually accomplished in that scenario. So now the plane is back far enough that we are able to take off, pushing the base truck out of the way. If for no reason than I thought it looked kind of cool. Oh, were able to take off, and we refueled. We filled the kethane tanks and we refueled. But as you remember, we lost most of our air intakes in the strange ground collision incident. We did not think that we left the base on quicksand. Apparently we did. We've since been able to fix that a little bit, but we didn't know that we left the base on quicksand, and it caused some of our air intakes to break off. You've seen that very recently, so you probably remember, but just a reminder. So we have to kind of limp back, and I really did not anticipate how much more fuel that would take. I don't know if it's the full payload or the fact that I had to fly lower because of the less air intake, probably a combination of the two. More air resistance, and then, well, more air resistance, more mass, which also factors into air resistance, and then lower altitude, and just the fact that we only have one air intake might have affected the fuel probably. And we have a problem with the glide path on this thing, because it's a bit front heavy, especially with all that kethane. That's why those tanks on the front exist at all, actually, is to let the fuel balancer have something to balance. That's why the fuel tanks for the engines are split up the way they are, so that we can actually move fuel back and forth to adjust the center of gravity. But it wasn't helping because the kethane is just so much heavier, it's overriding things. So I actually had to have the engines on in order to tilt up the plane, because the engines are underneath the center of mass there. So this thing definitely needs some redesigning. But with the engines barely running, we're able to get a very nice glide slope, and coming much more softly than I anticipated, which is great because it would be such a pain to lose all that fuel after it took so long to get there. So here we are, first delivery from the new mining base. A huge amount of fuel delivered back from the back to the KSC. Everyone is very happy and excited. Unfortunately, the pilot cannot celebrate because the pilot is an unmanned drone. Think of this as like those Amazon delivery drones. It takes fuel from the base and it delivers it to your door in 30 minutes or less. Well, not 30 minutes. What? Actually, yeah, 30 minutes or less. 27-minute mission. So what do you know? I wasn't paying attention to that joke before I made it, and now there you go. So 30 minutes or less, or your fuel's free. That's the guarantee of the kethane delivery drone. Talking. Filling space while we watch the thing land. Listen to the soothing sound of my voice, if I can actually say words correctly. In any event, we have in fact made it back to the KSC, and we are going to be building a fuel truck. Well, one of those combination fuel tankers and refineries. That's the word I was looking for. I do apologize. I took some time to wake up and get my coffee this morning. I don't know why I'm losing my train of thought so often. Hopefully you find it amusing, if nothing else. Anyway, combination fuel truck and refinery. I went for a lower slung design for two reasons. One, I'm tired of my Kerbals not being able to reach the dang craft that they are driving. Alright, I want them to be able to reach the frickin' fuel intakes and ladders and things so that I need to jump and fiddle around and do all that junk. Two, I'm tired of building long fuel tank trucks. And three, that just looks a lot cooler, the little spider, like underslung sort of spidery something design. I was going for something completely different from this when I first started, but it looked really stupid, so this looks a little better. I'm trying to build a little more for aesthetics since I'm building so often now for this. But really this is just same basic idea as the fuel truck we had in the previous mining base. You can drive up, collect the kethane, convert the kethane into fuel, which goes into into this very small holding tank and very small RCS tank, and then take that to it can take all the kethane to the larger storage vehicle that we are going to be building next, and convert it into fuel. And then once the conversion is done, the larger fuel truck will be what we actually use to refill our aircraft and spacecraft, etc. I do wish there was I kind of wish there was a way to build buildings because I'd like to just have a stationary point, maybe get round fuel tanks or something, and just have a stationary fuel holding area that I could then truck things out of. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that. It's a good goal. Thinking of that, I might install the round tanks and try to put the biggest one, a big assembly of them out in the KSC somewhere. The problem is getting them there, because I can kind of dry them there. I could maybe put up a little rocket and parachute it back down. That's not a bad idea. But I don't know if I'd want to use the fuel for that. Well, we'll figure it out. I think that I may have to put in a building in at some point, because it would be pretty awesome looking. Now, here's an interesting little factoid that I didn't know about the Kerbal attachment system. Is they actually can't attach to the pipe points if they're to an extreme an angle. So I actually had to attach another pipe point to link rather than move the frickin' truck. That would have taken way longer. Then we put Bill back up in. No, this is Bob, isn't it? I'm getting all of them confused. Yes, Bob. Bob goes back up into his truck, and we then begin to transfer fuel out of our kethane carrier plane, which really needs to be redesigned. I don't know. I'll come up with a better design for it next time we need to deliver the kethane to the base. But we finally get kethane back to the base. This is very exciting. It took another 2 episodes to get this working after our mining base ran dry last time due to quantum shifts and asteroids and things. We'll blame the asteroids. The asteroids did it. It's the asteroids' fault. And we're able to get quite a lot of fuel out of this. I do need to look up the conversion rate of kethane to fuel. That's going to be necessary in a future episode that I'm planning. But for now, we'll just accept that we got a huge amount of fuel, and we were able to start converting it. Unfortunately, that thing doesn't have a huge amount of power, so we did have to get some supplemental power on our fuel storage caterpillar thing here. I'm going to call it the worm. We'd have to put some additional fuel storage on the worm here. Not fuel storage, energy production, so that we can be sure to get the refinery working properly. I cannot talk today. Good God. Anyway, with the fuel storage in place, and the danged fuel pipe on the wrong place again. I could not put a fuel pipe on the correct part of the vehicle in this entire scenario. Every single thing I did in this episode had the fuel point in the wrong place. It was insane. See, unable to link because of extreme angle. Just seriously. I don't know. And then going back and forth on whether I want to grab this one and replace it or put another one on. I don't know. I'm going to just start sticking them on the danged end. And I lose the grip on it as well. I don't know why exactly. I think when you move the camera, it drops it. Which I guess is a decent idea. Anyway, once we get our fuel converted out, we build this very tippy little plane. This is something I've wanted to do pretty much since I started this series. I've been trying to build space planes forever. I've never gotten one to successfully work. I'm actually fairly noobish at a lot of KSP things. I've never gotten a space plane to work. I've never manually docked something. I've never done quite a bit in this game, actually. This is going to be quite a few little triumphs for me once this series gets going more in earnest and we're able to get back into space. But I wanted to build this little plane. And here's the idea for our space plane Mark III here. Other than the fact that there were 2 other iterations of this beforehand that I was experimenting with and didn't quite work out. Spaceplane Mark III is meant to be an all-in-one SSTO, which first off, the SSTO means that it can reach orbit from the ground without staging, so keeps the same engine that's got the whole way up. Secondly, it means that it has a built-in kethane mining drill and refinery on board. So the idea is we can take this plane, get it into orbit from Kerbin, then put it into orbit around another body, say the moon, and it has all the necessary scanning equipment to find kethane. It can then set down on the moon, refill its fuel tanks from its kethane drills, and get back into orbit and go wherever. And it also has nuclear engines, which are so efficient with the amount of fuel this thing has on it and the ability to refuel. It should be able to get more or less anywhere in the solar system if we're careful. So on to refueling. The center of gravity on the space plane is really close to landing gear because I want it to be easy to get up and down from pretty much anywhere. I want it to be able to tilt itself on its engines, gimbling more or less if it was in a higher gravity landing with no atmosphere. Because that is a danger with this kind of design, is it's designed to take off an atmosphere. And it's very difficult to get one that's designed to take off an atmosphere and from a non-atmosphere planet. But we're going to do our best. The main problem that I'm having right now is getting our Kerbal in and out of the plane when its back is lifted up so far. Which is, I think it's partly more a problem because of the lack of fuel than anything else. It's upset the balance, which we'll be able to deal with shortly. But yeah, this thing, basic refueling. We have to make sure we get everything because there's a couple of small fuel tanks. There's some little things in the test simulations. We were able to get a version of this, not this version. I did some experimenting with some previous versions. I was able to get one almost into orbit, but not quite. So actually, I've never had a successful test of these planes. Now, we're using the onboard AI. There is MechJeb on this. Thankfully, it was able to turn on the engine and get it centered itself again on the runway. We put MechJeb on this because while I can fly the thing perfectly fine, and if you want me to prove it later, I will, MechJeb is just such a big help for some of the boring bits. I can tell it to level off at various altitudes and just have it do that, which is so nice, especially with the liquid fuel balancer and the monopropellant balancer and all the balancers in there. Really just able to keep it flying level, which is really all that I want from the thing. And space planes take so long to get up into orbit, especially if you don't want to use too much time acceleration because of the inherent instability in some of these designs, that MechJeb is just useful for holding altitude, some of your slow climbs and things. So that's why I'm using it on the space plane. I'll use it on some other things as well. I'm not going to do too much with it. I don't know. I find it dull to just sit back and watch these things sometimes even. So we're just going to be using it to assist in the ascent here. And we're mostly using it for the apoapsis reading because it's very difficult to fly a space plane and look at the map view and try to keep everything lined up and switch your engines and all the things. So that's mostly what MechJeb is on here for, is for the orbital info data. But I did use it to help in my ascent to level off and some other things. So just to be completely honest and transparent with you. But other than that, the flight went surprisingly well. We were able to get it up to a decent altitude before we turned on the nuclear engines. I know that I tuned them on a little bit early. We still do have air and things. But my thinking was this. We have the nuclear engines on there, and we are carrying oxidizer for the nuclear engines because they can't breathe air. So, at a certain point, we've used up more liquid fuel than we have oxidizer, which means we run through the fuel that we brought for the main air-breathing engine. So, after that, the extra oxidizer that we're carrying is really just dead weight. So we may as well use our nuclear engines to keep going and start assisting in order to burn off some of the dead weight oxidizer. And yes, it's going to burn through the liquid fuel faster. It's not going to match up at all evenly. But we may as well use our nukes to assist. And we were able to get up to a good altitude, and we were able to circularize, which I did use MechJeb for because I wanted to save fuel and make sure we got into a nice stable orbit with this thing. And now we're back in space, and I cannot tell you how excited I am to be back out of the atmosphere. Oh my god. I was getting so tired of planes and flying them and all the things, and I have to do it more. But we finally got something into orbit. This is a great day for Kerbal Fuel Crisis. So, with our space plane in orbit, we're going to leave it here. Next episode, I'm gonna want to refuel this thing. I think we could make it to another celestial body, but I don't know if we have enough fuel on the thing to land, especially with how finicky it's going to be trying to land with nuclear engines. I've never actually tried that before. That will be an interesting adventure in itself. But now, with our space plane orbiting the planet and plans for the future, I will leave you be, because just so excited, can't even think about it. I'm going to leave everything be for now because it's already been a little bit of a long episode. Thanks so much for watching. I really hope you enjoy. If you want to see more, like, subscribe, comment, etc. This series comes out every Thursday, barring any major inconveniences on my part. But if it's going to be up late, I'll let you know via Twitter. And possibly an announcement somewhere on YouTube. Hopefully. With all that out of the way, thank you very much again for watching. I'm Gepwin, and I'll see you soon.